Greetings, everybody, wherever you may be, and welcome once again to Kourou, the home of the Ariane family, where tonight we're ready to go with flight number 199, take 2. Liftoff in less than a quarter of an hour. The weather seems more cooperative today than yesterday. Joshua Jampol here with my friend Samir Ahmedji from Ariane Space, a mission analyst. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. I'm very pleased to be here with you tonight for the 6th launch of the Ariane 5 ECA GTO.
All the action just ahead, but first some opening words from Jean-Yves Le Gall, Ariane Space's chairman and chief executive. Good evening. After the first launch attempt that we had to cut short last night, we're again ready to launch Hispasat 1E and Koreasat 6. We're very fortunate to have here in French Guyana a weather service at the Guyana Space Center, which is of an extremely high quality. This service lets us follow the evolution of the local weather conditions very precisely. We made our first launch attempt last night because we were hoping that by the end of the launch window, the high-altitude winds would die down and we'd get the go-ahead to launch. But unfortunately, that didn't turn out to be the case. But I would like to underscore the high quality of the weather service here at the CSG, which allows for very precise adjustments of operation when taking the weather into account. Today we're told that the high-altitude winds are favorable and the launch has been given the green light. Our operational teams worked all night to drain the launcher and then resumed the countdown this morning. All is well, and if all continues to go well, we'll launch this evening, the 6th of the year, with an Ariane 5 ECA, with Hispasat 1E, and with Koreasat 6. We like to set the scene opening the broadcast by presenting the major players responsible for the launch, and we're going to begin when we go into Jupiter with the Ariane Flight Directorate. But just before we do, Jean-Yves Le Gall said the launcher was emptied of its fuel, but didn't say why. The launcher has to be emptied of its propellants because if they're left too long, the tanks start to corrode them. So Ariane was drained, cleaned, dried, refilled, and was ready to resume the countdown at 6:13 this morning. Now, who's in the flight directorate?
So the head of the flight directorate is Mr. Jean-Yves Le Gall, who is our chairman and CEO. There is also Mr. Patrick Loire, head of the facility here at Kourou, and Mr. Edouard Perez, who is the living technical memory of Ariane Space and the highest technical authority in the company. So we can say that those people are the highest authorities at Ariane Space, and in fact they are going to take all the major and important decisions about the launcher if any problem is going on.
We have a big base here in Kourou, and a lot of different services come in, and they're summarized by these green status panels on the left.
Yeah, so this status panel is a bit like a dashboard in a car. These are indicators, in fact, giving the good health of the major systems. They give the status of the spacecraft, the ground stations, the telemetry, the weather. And as you can see tonight on your screen, the weather panel is green, unlike yesterday. So we can say that we are ready to go.
Green status panels are a summary of all these different services, as we said, and the information comes in here to Jupiter, which is why we call the Jupiter Mission Control the nerve center of the space base, and they're summarized the go or no-go status. 6th launch of the year, tonight at the 55th Ariane 5. Resume of the launch campaign coming up now with the launch operations manager called the COL. If all the Ariane space missions this year have been successful, it's thanks in part to the availability and motivation of the operational teams, who are led by the COL, the Launch Operations Manager. We asked the COL for tonight's mission, Jean-Pierre Barlet, to explain what he does.
It's a bit like being the campaign commander with technical responsibilities for the launcher implementation and at the same time human responsibilities as the person in charge of all aspects of the campaign. Which means getting all the teams to work together to be ready in time for the countdown with a launched vehicle that is fully compliant with the flight definition.
Once the launcher arrives in the final assembly building, a phase called combined operations can begin. This is followed by the mission director and his payload deputy. Each afternoon they hold a meeting where their teams update them on the campaign.
You have to realize that the launch campaign involves bringing together the launcher schedule, the spacecraft schedules, and also the launch range constraints. We have a tried and tested operational organization in which the driving force is nonetheless the motivation of the people involved in the launch campaign.
Once the customer's satellites are housed inside the fairing where their temperature and humidity are strictly controlled, the final phase of the campaign can begin.
The last operations in the launch campaign are the rollout to the launch area and then the final countdown, during which the launcher is fueled and gradually brought into flight configuration, ready for liftoff.
The launcher for tonight's mission was given the green light to move to the launch zone yesterday. It was rolled out to the pad, pulled by a special truck with a gearbox with 32 speeds, most of them slow, since Ariane 5 makes the 3-kilometer trip in about an hour. Before moving on, a word about a new French law that took effect December 10th, modifying a bit CNES's, that's the French Space Agency's powers at the space base here. We're going to introduce these gentlemen in just a minute. The new law is applicable for the first time for this launch, giving CNES new powers to oversee safety and security here. It also stipulates that any launch services operator must now meet certain quality criteria if it wishes to launch here. And of course, Arianespace was awarded this license, whereby, according to the new law, it's a bona fide launch services operator on French territory. And remember, we are in French territory here. Some other key players, we saw the mission director and the range operations manager.
So the mission director, the CM, is in fact the Arianespace responsible for the coordination of the launch pad study activities. So that is to say, from the arrival of the spacecraft at the launch base until the completion of all post-launch activities. And you mentioned it, Josh, you also have the DDO, the Director of Operations, who is the CSG responsible for providing Arianespace customers with the necessary CSG support during the satellite campaign. And the last people that we saw were the program director, who are more linked with the commercial aspects from the signature of the contract till the separation of the spacecraft.
Meeting with the customers on a day-to-day basis.
Exactly.
The DDO...
DDO, attention pour la séquence finale lanceur.
Right on time. He's going to call out the 7-minute mark.
Top. H0 7 minutes.
All right, we're into the 7-minute mark. This is where we had to stop yesterday, but we're doing fine today. This is called the synchronized sequence or the automatic sequence, and the computers are taking over.
Yeah, so during those last 7 minutes, the launcher is going to become more and more automated. So as you say, the computers are taking over from people, and they have to coordinate many checks and commands in a very short period of time. But of course, we have all the teams, the Arianespace launch teams, which are closely monitoring everything.
Including some of these teams are up at the launch pad, closer to the pad, about 2 kilometers, no, 1 kilometer from the pad. These people on the screen now, these are the launch base operations team members. You saw the COEL, Mr. Barley, earlier, and you're going to see him again. He's coordinating 3 teams, actually. There's a first team coordinating the launch campaign and the countdown. The second team is guaranteeing the flight readiness. They're going to sign off on the OK to fly. They signed off on the OK to transfer the vehicle you saw just a bit earlier from the final assembly building to the pad. And there's a third team, and this is what, the second time that we have the third team
yes,
up there?
Yes, that's correct.
Quality team, independent from those 2 others. Now, all these 200 people roughly up in the CDO making sure everything is ready. And you need all these people because you can imagine a very complex launch vehicle like Ariane 5. We want to make sure everything is picture perfect. Other key players, the satellite mission directors now.
So Mr. Antonio Abad that you can see on your screen, the DMS, and he's the one who is going to decide in the final chronology if the satellite is ready for launch. So as you have seen with the green status panel, there were no red for the spacecraft, so which is the case tonight. And as you can also see from the faces, he's very concentrated because the launch represents one of the most delicate phases in the satellite life.
The launch also represents months, years of work for some of these people, all coming down on the line in less than 5 minutes. We will see the Hispasat people. There are we'll see the people from Koreasat in just a moment. These people decide, the satellite mission directors decide if the satellite is ready for launch. We're going to take a look at the launch vehicle in just a moment. For those of you not familiar with Ariane, she stands about 50, that's 50 meters tall. There are 2 parts, or composites as they call them, a lower composite and an upper.
So you can see on your screen the second stage, the main core stage, the EPC. which is a cryogenic stage. Up the EPC, you have the last stage, the ECA, which is pretty much the size of a small studio apartment, and we're going to put the spacecraft into the final orbit. And up all this, you have the fairing, inside whom we have our two prestigious passengers tonight. It's Hispasat 1A and Koreasat 6, which are tucked away.
Night beginning to fall here at the CSG, which happens to be the world's only dedicated commercial space base, where Arianespace operating the launcher family, which is soon to grow with the addition of Soyuz and Vega. That's just next year. Now, we mentioned that in the final moments of final countdown is one of the key moments. There are two others that concern the weather that took place 7 hours ago and 4.5 hours ago. Weather checks. We can go in all weather except high-altitude winds, apparently. Rain is no problem.
No, rain is not a problem, and we are in the rainy season right now. Today it was sunny. As you mentioned, we do need to monitor other things, like the strength and direction of high-altitude winds, and this is why we had a red yesterday, because of the high-altitude winds. We also have to monitor convective clouds and thunderstorms in order to avoid any risk from lightning.
We looked at the launcher. We're going to look inside the fairing at the satellites now. You can see the upper passenger, Hispasat. The upper passenger is separated first, and it is usually, not always, but usually the heavier satellite. It is the case tonight, 5.3 tons, as you can see there.
And if you keep on going with your X-ray glasses, you can see the lower passenger, Koreasat 6, inside this black box that we call the SILA 5A, and which allows Ariane 5 to have a double launch.
We are lifting 8 tons tonight, 5.3 tons for Hispasat and 2.7 tons for Koreasat, and only possible, of course, with the heavy lift Ariane 5, the only commercial launcher capable of lifting 2 big passengers. We are coming up on the 2-minute mark, and you'll hear the DDO call out the 2-minute mark and then the 1-minute mark. And one of the last things that you're going to see before liftoff is the propellant feeder arms. This is a split-screen shot of them. Liquid hydrogen on the left, liquid oxygen on the right. They're feeding this very cold cryogenic propellant into the upper stage, and when we pull back, you'll get a better shot of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to give you some numbers, you know, those fluids are extremely cold. Liquid hydrogen is about minus 240 degrees, and liquid oxygen about minus 160 degrees. And you know it's hot and humid over here. You have fluids which are extremely cold, and this is why we need to fill the tanks until the last possible moment, otherwise they would evaporate.
All right, the last possible moment for you. We're coming down on a minute. Samir is going to head out. Do you still want to go out on the balcony?
Yes, I'm still...
All right, he has never seen a launch from here, folks, so he's going to go out on one of the 2 terraces on either side of Jupiter here. And when he comes back after liftoff, we'll have some impressive...
À tous de DDO, attention pour moins 1 minute.
We'll have his impressions.
Some fresh feelings.
Hot, makes for some good radio comments.
Top. Moins 1 minute.
See you soon, Josh.
Okay, enjoy it. Don't get lost now. Try and find your way back. The ignition sequence, we're into the final 60 seconds. Other people in the invited guests here making their way out to the terraces as well. You see the yellow bars right in the center of the screen. Those are the feeder arms we talked about. At minus 5 seconds, the DDO will be calling out 10, 9, 8, 7. When he gets to 5, that's 5, of course, in French. Those arms will pull back. Watch for that, because that starts the entire process. At 0, you'll hear allumage, which is ignition, and then you'll see the main engine light, but we don't lift off for 7 seconds because the computers are checking the performance in the main engine. And if all is well, they give the signal to light the boosters. And we're
attention
off.
pour le décompte final.
Enjoy the liftoff, everybody. We'll be back after Ariane has cleared the tower.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, top. Allumage moteur Vulcain. Allumage des EAP et décollage. Fin de la manœuvre en oubli, la trajectoire est normale.
So with only a 24-hour delay, which is nothing in the space business, Ariane lifting off from French Guiana, powering her way up through the clouds into the clear sky. You see over the beaches and over the forest here. Our cameraman, René Zamor, out on the terrace with the guests and with Samir, taking these fine shots, always very impressive. 775 tons is the mass at liftoff as Ariane leaves the ground. We're still being able to follow her by the naked eye. Maybe we'll be able to see the separation of the boosters. The skies are clear enough. She's burning now 5 tons of fuel every second. That's 2.5 tons of fuel in each booster. And the core stage is burning another 300 kilos of fuel per second, roughly equivalent to a dozen Airbuses, if you're keeping score. She's following the program in the onboard computer, which gives all the orders, including all the separations of the stages, which you'll see shortly. The DDO calling out that all is on board is okay. We're in the first of 4 flight phases. The first 3 are powered. The last isn't. We'll give you a description of each in turn so you can follow Ariane as she heads across the Atlantic, where she'll separate the 2 satellites. Right now, the first flight phase, the single core stage engine is burning and the 2 boosters are burning. Boosters will burn in just over 2 minutes each, and they're the first to be extinguished. You'll hear the DDO call out that milestone as well. All is going well on board. In a few seconds, you will probably be able to see the flame out of the 2 boosters on either side. It's not every day that we can see that. There looks like the flame out of the boosters. Separation of the boosters. You'll see them fall away. Samir is back. Your eyes are glowing.
Like dinner plates, you can see that like on my face. I guess it was amazing, George. You know, the 2 things impressed me. It was the light and the vibration, and you are so close that you can still feel the platform was shaking.
Was it really shaking?
It was really shaking, and people around were clapping their hands. Everyone was. Well, it's amazing.
Super. All right. Thank you for that. You can see the Ariane continuing to burn. The 2 boosters have dropped away, done their job. We're into the second of the flight phases now. It's a single engine burning. Samir, now that you're back, I need you to explain. On the left-hand side of the screen, on the upper left, there's a curve, and on the bottom, there's some figures.
So on the upper left of your screen, you have a curve, which is giving the prediction. The trajectory we have predicted.
Okay. The fairing has just been separated right on time. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. And you have a white spot, which is moving into the prediction that we have made, and which represents the actual position of the launch vehicle. As you can see on your screen, the spot is sticking with the curve, which means that we are okay.
So we're okay. All right, fine. And you have 10 seconds to give us just a brief look at the numbers.
Okay, so 2 important parameters down your screen, the A, which is the altitude, and the V, which represents the velocity. And as you can see now, we are at 140 kilometers of altitude and 2.5 kilometers a second of speed.
Great. Back with more, but for now, the news from Ariane Space. The news is in 2 parts. Part 1 on this year. On November 26th, an Ariane 5 delivered 2 new satellites in another successful double launch, Intelsat 17 for the US and Hylas 1 for Britain. It was the 5th Ariane launch of the year and the 40th straight success for the European launcher.
With the recent signature of the contract for the launch of Sikral 2, we have reached an important stage in the collaboration of Italian industry with Ariane Space. As you know, many other Italian satellites have been launched by Ariane Space in the past, but I think the launch of Sikral 2, or the signature of the contract that will lead to its launch, will be particularly important.
Petra Mateos, chairman of Hispasat, was named Business Leader of the Year. Offered by the Chamber of Commerce of Spain, New York, the award was given for her work linking the 2 countries through satellite communications. The European Space Agency signed with Ariane Space to launch Sentinel-1A. The 2-ton bird will be one of 4 in the European program called Global Monitoring for Environment and Security and will be launched at the end of 2012 via Soyuz. Jean-Yves Le Gall was part of a delegation of French industry leaders accompanying the French presidential couple, the Sarkozys, on an official visit to India and ISRO, the Indian Space Research Organization, earlier this month. And Jean-Yves Le Gal's message, by the way, was on the importance of India's space program to Europe, since Ariane has already launched 15 satellites built by the Indians. That's your home country.
Yeah, and I'm very proud of that, Josh.
You mentioned you can see our speed on the lower left is 3.5 kilometers per second. How fast do we have to be traveling to separate a satellite?
So there's still a long journey for the upper stage, I mean, and we need a speed of 9.5 kilometers per second.
9.5 kilometers per second. That's pretty fast.
It's really, really fast.
So when you see, folks, keep your eyes on the numbers, and when we start approaching 8 or 9 kilometers per second, you'll know that we are in the general vicinity of satellite separation. 6 minutes into the launch, we're still in the core stage burning. Burns for about 10 minutes. As promised, part 2 of the Ariane Space News on next year, big year with the ATV, Soyuz, and Vega.
The ATV-2 is so important for the European Space Agency, but not only, also for the other ISS partners, because we are bringing to the station 7 tons of cargo and fuel in order to, on one side, support the ISS astronauts, and on the other side, to reboost the space station, mainly when we are waiting for a very interesting solar max in 2013. So the station has to be reboosted. What is important also to notice is that the ATV-2 will be the only vehicle able to bring to the station cargo and fuel after the shuttle is retired.
So 2011 will be a very important year for ESA launchers, because we have the maiden flight of Vega, the small launch vehicle. We are now in a crucial phase of the development phase with the final phases. On one side, with the system qualification review on ground that certifies the ability of the launcher to go in flight. And on the other side, another activity very important that is taking place in these days are the exploitation of the combined test. The combined tests are there to simulate all the phases of the assembly and integration of the launch vehicle on the ground base, but also to simulate then the launch sequence and the launch campaign. So I wish to give to all of you an appointment for next summer to see the first launch of this new ESA launch vehicle.
And on the Soyuz side, the mobile gantry rollout tests were successfully carried out here in Kourou, as were the technical qualifications of the payload's upper part. The Soyuz launch pad operational qualification is scheduled for next spring, with a maiden launch coming shortly thereafter. About 1 minute to go in the first stage burn. While you were watching the film, we were picked up by our first downrange tracking station over the border in Brazil. That's at Natal. Now you, Samer, you work at the tracking station here, which is called Galileo.
Mm-hmm. So basically we have 5 ground stations which are tracking the launcher, and during the flight Ariane sends technical data to those ground stations, like the speed, the altitude.
Constantly,
exactly, in real time. And we are going to use those data to analyze how the flight is progressing. And that's my job, actually. During the launch, I'm based at the ground station at Galileo here in Kourou.
Coming up on the extinction of the lower stage, you see how that happens up there. It's the lower stage burnout, and the lower stage is separated, and the upper stage is ignited. You see now we're burning with a single engine, like the lower stage. All those orders given by the onboard computer in the space of about 13 seconds. Extinction of the lower stage, separation, and ignition of the upper stage. All is okay on board. You can see our speed is coming up to 7 kilometers an hour, and our altitude 178 kilometers. You're watching Ariane space flight number 199, Hispasat 1E, and Koreasat 6. We are coming up on a look back now on the successful year of 2010. We're going to be hearing from Jacques Breton and Louis Laurent of Ariane Space. 2010 was another excellent year for global market leader Ariane Space. With the details on both the company's commercial side and financials for the year, we spoke with Jacques Breton, Ariane Space's commercial director.
This year, Ariane Space signed 11 contracts for GTO satellites and 3 for non-GTO missions, representing 7 Soyuz launches. This brings our turnover to a little more than 1.3 billion euros, a 13% increase compared to last year. We have already orbited 31 defense-oriented satellites for telecommunication and Earth observation, and we still have 5 to launch in the coming years, Sequel 2 being the last one signed. Building on our quality of service and unmatched reliability, we intend in 2011 to bring our launch service and solutions to even more customers.
For the technical side, we go to Louis Laurent, Ariane Space's Director of Programs, for a look at the operational teams responsible for all the launches.
The work has been carried out not only by Ariane Space, but also by the different teams involved. CNES, CSG, our Russian partners, and all the European industries involved in launch operations. Everyone has shown both willingness to work over what is traditionally a holiday season and reactivity in coping with the technical hiccups we've had. We have nonetheless managed to respect the launch schedule, not least thanks to the competence of our European operational teams, probably the best in the world.
2011 promises to be another banner year beginning in February with the ATV, then the maiden launches of Soyuz and Vega. The upper stage burns for about 16 minutes, so about 12 minutes left in the burn. She carries about 12 tons of liquid hydrogen and oxygen. Of core first stage, by the way, carried about 170 tons. We're into the second half of the mission. We can start focusing on the passengers now. And we have a series of interviews and films coming up on both Hispasat and Koreasat and on the builders. To start us off, we have an interview with Petru Mateos, the president of Hispasat.
Once again, Hispasat has chosen Ariane Space and its Ariane 5 ECA launcher for the launch into orbit of its new satellite Hispasat 1E. This is the 6th launch carried out with Ariane Space and was preceded by the Hispasat 1A and 1B, the Amazonas 2, and through Hispasat, the Star-Eur and the SpainSat. In the middle of an important investment process, the Hispasat 1E is the second of the 5 new satellites laid out in our growth plan. Located at 30 degrees west, the Hispasat 1E duplicates our space capacity in this orbital position, to which it adds 53 transponders in Ku band and capacity in Ka8 band. The new satellite broadens our coverage over Europe, America, and Africa, reinforcing our leadership and our internationalization process. Manufactured on a LS 1300 platform made by Space System Loral, Hispasat 1E is a very technological advanced and high-power satellite that allows Hispasat to increase its selection of high-quality services. Hispasat is the leading satellite operator in the broadcast and distribution of content in Spanish and Portuguese. It disseminates and distributes more than 1,150 television and radio channels, including the content of important direct-to-home digital television platforms in Europe as well as in America. In Latin America, Hispasat is now the 3rd most important company by income in its sector. The Hispasat 1E satellite offers capacity over America that reinforces satellite capacity in the region, together with the current satellites, the Amazonas 1 and Amazonas 2. Hispasat's trajectory in recent years has allowed the company to reach levels of profitability and technological development that places it among the most important satellite communication operators. Hispasat is key to the development of the aerospace and telecommunication industry, fomenting its growth with important indirect effects. In addition, Hispasat contributes to the advance of the society through its participation in numerous educational and cultural projects to extend the information society, universalize service, and reduce the digital gap. Last year's experience with the launch of the Amazonas 2 satellite with the same Ariane space launcher was very positive. Good luck to all in this new joint project.
So we just had the acquisition of our third ground station, which is Ascension, in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. So it's a small island above the equator line, and we are keeping on with our journey. As you can see, the speed is now of 8 kilometers per second, the altitude about 160 kilometers. So we are traveling, and before we go further on, we'll see a movie on Loral, who built the spacecraft Hispasat 1A.
The Hispasat 1E satellite is a large, powerful, 15-kilowatt geocommunications satellite. The coverage extends from Europe to North Africa and to the American continent.
The Hispasat 1E satellite design is based on the SSL 1300 bus. The central cylinder is the primary structural element. The propellant tanks are installed within the central cylinder. Other propulsion and structural elements are mounted to the central cylinder. The repeater is integrated and tested on the satellite main communications panels, and these panels are then integrated onto the satellite main body. The top assembly of the satellite includes the antenna tower, the deployable reflectors, and the solar arrays.
The Hispasat 1E satellite will offer new services for DTH platforms, for digital terrestrial television, and also for high-definition television as well as broadband services.
7 minutes to go in the upper stage burn, 7 minutes of power left in the mission. Tell us a little more, Samir, on the upper stage, some of its characteristics, what it does.
So unlike the main stage, it burns cryogenic propellant. Every second, it's burning about 15 kilograms of hydrogen and oxygen. And to give you some more numbers. Sorry, I was interrupted because we just had the acquisition of the fourth station.
We'll be back with you. Right now, an interview in Korean with Mr. Ho Ik-suk, Vice Chair of KT Corp.
여러분 반갑습니다. KT 부회장 석호익입니다. 제가 직접 올해 1호 발사 현장에 참석해서 여러분과 발사의 순간을 함께 하고 싶었지만 아쉽게도 이렇게 KT를 대표해서 동영상으로 인사를 드립니다. 지난 3년여 동안 올해 1호 제작 과정에서 라킬라 지진, 옐로 탱크 교체 등 여러 가지 우여곡절이 있었다고 보고받았습니다. 하지만 위성체 공동 제작사인 프랑스의 탈레스 알레니아 스페이스사와 미국의 오비털 사이언스 코퍼레이션사의 많은 기술진들의 헌신적인 노력으로 오늘 이렇게 발사 준비를 완료했다고 생각합니다. 아울러 타스사의 사장 미스터 레이날드 세즈넥과 OSC사의 사장 미스터 데이비드 W. 톰슨 씨를 비롯한 모든 관계자 여러분들께 깊은 감사의 말씀을 드립니다. 또한 아리안 스페이스사의 미스터 장이브 르갈 사장을 비롯한 발사체 제작에 참여한 임직원들에게도 27회 발사 연속 성공과 경제성 있는 발사체를 제공해 주신 것에 대해 진심으로 감사의 말씀을 드립니다. KT는 지금까지 무궁화 1, 2, 3, 5호 4개의 위성 발사를 통해서 15년 이상 안정적인 통신과 방송 서비스를 제공해 왔습니다. 이번에 발사하는 올해 1호 위성은 무궁화 3호 위성의 연속성을 유지하고 HD와 3D 방송 서비스를 제공함으로써 위성 방송 품질을 한 단계 업그레이드 시킬 것으로 생각합니다. 또한 KT는 콘도셋 위성인 올해 2, 3호에도 투자해서 아프리카, 중앙아시아, 중동과 동남아시아 지역에서도 서비스를 제공할 수 있는 기반을 마련했습니다. 앞으로도 KT는 지속적으로 위성 사업을 강화해서 세계적인 사업자로 도약하도록 노력할 것입니다. 저를 비롯한 이번 위성 발사와 관련된 주요 고객사들도 파리 상황실에서 여러분과 마찬가지로 발사 상황을 생중계로 지켜보고 있습니다. 저는 이번 올해 1호 위성 발사가 반드시 성공해서 함께 축배를 들기를 기원합니다. 여러분 감사합니다.
Ariane performing flawlessly. Samir, take us back to Galileo now. The data is coming in constantly on your screen. What do you do with it?
So all the data, are connected to Galileo. So now we just had the acquisition by Libreville, the 4th ground station in Gabon, West Coast Africa. And then they are going to be sent to Galileo, and where the head of the CVE is going to gather all the information in real time and send it here in Kourou and back there in Evry.
Okay, back with more, but for now a film on KT Corporation for Koreasat.
The start of a new challenge to change the world at KT. The path traveled by KT represents the evolution of ICT in Korea. KT has fueled major advances in information and communication technologies in Korea. From fixed-line telephone to high-speed internet, to the world's first commercial WCDMA and Wibro services, communication satellite and submarine optical cable, KT delivers innovative and unparalleled services. KT is also the leader in service quality and customer satisfaction, ranking first in Korea's prominent customer surveys. KT is always thinking of the customer as we prepare for the era of global ICT convergence. Thinking outside the box reflects the spirit of Ole KT. KT's new management paradigm, Ole Management. Rethinking conventional ideas. Managing to usher in the era of convergence. Communicating to promote engagement and openness. Satisfying customers beyond their expectation. KT is geared up for a new beginning. Our target is to emerge as the global ICT convergence leader. KT is exploring untraveled roads with endless challenge and passion. KT will become a world-class telecommunications company worthy of love and respect.
Less than a minute left in the upper stage burn. Samir, I'm just curious, I just have one last question about Galileo. How many are you up there?
So we have 4 there, and we have 4 computers. Each computers are giving a different kind of information. One computer is more specialized with propulsion aspects, one with maneuvers, and one with trajectory, for example. And this is the computer I'm behind when I'm at La Montagne des Pères. So the trajectory computer, for example, is giving the differences that we can have in altitude and in speed.
So this is just a constant stream of numbers?
You have numbers, and you also have some curves showing the evolution of the trajectory.
Trajectory tonight is normal. Everything is normal. You can see our speed is 9 kilometers per second. We're coming up to separation time. But first we will have the extinction, the burnout of the upper stage. And then we'll be into the final flight phase, which is not powered. The fourth
extinction de l'étage supérieur cryotechnique sur commande de guidage.
There it is. You see how the engine shutting down there. So we're now into the 4th flight phase. No more power, but a lot is happening.
Début de la phase balistique.
And we're going to get an explanation of that from Samir. But first, Ariane Space and Hispasat are old friends. A film now on this relationship.
Début de la manœuvre d'orientation.
Ariane Space launched the first Hispasat in 1992. That was Hispasat 1A, and today's mission is the sixth for the two partners. In between, the European launch vehicle successfully orbited Hispasat 1B in 1993, X-Star in 2005, Spainsat the year after, and Amazonas 2 most recently last October. Ariane Space and Hispasat go back a long way.
The launch services integration is indeed a long-run activity. For the specific case of Hispasat 1E, it started almost 2 years prior to launch.
Each time, similar conditions and qualities must come into play. Each launch follows a similar pattern overall. However, each satellite is different. This means Ariane Space must carefully respect and meet each client's specific needs.
Because it is essentially multidisciplinary, this activity requires mainly being organized and accurate in order to make sure that all Ariane Space's and customers' requirements are taken into account appropriately and timely.
This launch of Hispasat 1E shows the close relationship the Spanish operator maintains with Ariane Space. A final word now from Antonio Abad, Satellite Mission Director for Hispasat 1E.
The Hispasat 1E satellite is a 13-kilowatt satellite with 53 Ka-band transponders covering Europe, Africa and the Americas. It also has Ka-band capacity. The high power of the transponders and the dedicated design antennas provide high level of ERP and GORT that allowed us to provide high quality and cost-efficient application and services to our customers. The Spanish industry has played a very important role in the construction of the satellite.
We're due to have separation of Hispasat in a few short seconds. A very emotional moment now, all eyes on the computers. And there we are, the first good news. Happy faces, thumbs up. Hispasat, the first passenger separated. You see the people holding their applause very politely in the hall here until separation of the second satellite. She's pushed away from the mothership by a spring, a series of springs.
Yeah, those springs are mounted all around the adapter, and they allowed the spacecraft to be pushed away.
Over now to Antonio Abad, Satellite Mission Director for Hispasat. He's going to talk about IoT positioning. That means in-orbit testing.
After the satellite is separated from the launchers, we will deploy the solar array panels, providing power to the satellite and recharging the batteries. A series of 4 apogee firing maneuvers will be performed to increase the perigee of the orbit up to the geostationary height. Once we are in geostationary orbit, we will set the satellite to Earth pointing mode and we will deploy the antennas. After that, we will insert the satellite in the IoT position using several trimming maneuvers. Once the satellite is in the IoT position, we will perform an extensive set of tests both at payload and platform level to demonstrate that the satellite has survived to the launch. After that, we will position the satellite in 30 degrees west and we will initialize the collocation strategy of the satellite with the other satellites in the orbital position. Finally, the satellite will be ready to provide high quality and satisfactory services to our customers for 15 years of its lifetime.
So we're out of the powered phases. We're in what they call the ballistics phase. A lot is happening. Maybe you can give us an explanation of what's going on.
So now you can see on the screen right now that there are lots of maneuvers which are happening. There are some movement. The upper body is making some movements.
It seems to be moving clockwise.
Yes, it's because, you know, all the bodies that we are going to separate it needs different kind of direction, and we also want to avoid any risk from collision. This is why now you have some move around, and you just have the separation of the black box, which is the SILDA on your screen.
That's the carrying structure, which allows us to have the second passenger. You can see Koreasat facing the elements now, the blue box. So the SILDA goes in another direction. The two satellites have to go in two other directions to avoid collisions. Koreasat 6 will replace Koreasat 3, which was, of course, launched by Ariane back in 1999, another faithful customer riding second tonight. And we have a film now, another film. You'll be hearing from Ariane Space's Vero Loisel, who's the program director for Koreasat 6.
It was in 2008 that Korea Telecom chose Arianespace to launch its satellite Koreasat 6.
Most Arianespace launches, like tonight's, are double launches carrying international passengers, and like this one, they're usually a mix of different cultures. This reflects the global space community, of which Asia and Korea are now major players.
Korea Telecom has once again placed its trust in us. We already launched Koreasat 3, which is soon to be replaced by Koreasat 6.
Koreasat 6 is the third satellite launched by Arianespace for South Korea after Koreasat 3 and Comms 1 launched last June. It's the second for Korea Telecom, who now is another regular customer for Arianespace.
KT has been very pleased with the contract execution with the Arianespace, and they show the great cooperation with the satellite manufacturers, Thales Alenia Space, and the Orbital Science Corporation, and the way the campaign has been conducted.
Providing reliable launch service and solutions for Korea and the Asia-Pacific region is how Arianespace contributes to achievements in space. Customers like Korea Telecom appreciate this successful cooperation.
Arianespace has been known to be a preeminent launch service provider in this industry. Ariane launch vehicle has more than 95% of reliability and 40 times consecutive launch success. That is our main criteria to choose Arianespace, mainly for their reliability record and the commitment to launch on time.
Before we go to our final film on Koreasat, we have just a minute. We have time for the quiz question. Are you ready?
Actually, I was not prepared, but I'm
you're
ready, Josh.
You're prepared
I have no
now.
choice, I guess.
You're prepared. Arianespace quiz question number 199. This is the first time Ariane has been able to launch between the holidays. I mean after Christmas and before New Year's. We've come close to a Christmas launch before, but never after Christmas. Can you name the date when the closest we came to launching to Christmas in the past? Now, anybody at Arianespace should be able to get this one. You've been with Arianespace how long?
5 years.
You have an idea?
I guess I have an idea.
Hold on to it. Hold on to
I'm
it.
holding it.
Hold on to it, and we'll look at it. We'll ask you after the film, our final film, on how Koreasat 6 will be positioned.
After separation, the satellite will be acquired by the Mission Operations Control Center at Dallas, Virginia, by the Orbital Science team. The satellite will go through state health tests and then be the cruising altitude. 4 array burns are planned to raise the orbit, reduce the inclination to geosynchronous orbit. The solar arrays and reflectors will be deployed next. After that, the spacecraft will go through bus and payload in-orbit testing before commencing service. After successful completion of in-orbit testing, we expect the satellite to be operational by January 2011.
Okay, coming up on separation of Koreasat in just about a minute. Talk about the mass profile now. We lifted off with 775 tons. And now we're down to how much?
Now we have, so I don't know the exact max now, but what I can say is that at the end of the propulsion phase, we were at 26 tons. That means the ECA, of course, the VAB, which is the brain of the launcher, the 2 adapters, the 2 satellites, the carrying structure. So, you know, if we make a comparative ratio between the payload mass and the propellant mass, it's less than 1%.
Very good. Okay, you see, we have the applause from the crowd here. Very appreciative from the separation of our second passenger, Ariane 5, once again delivering. Handshakes all around, as you can see. Hugs. And you see Koreasat up there being pushed away from the mothership, beginning her life. She, too, will have 4 apogee motor firings on the 1st, 3rd, 5th, and 7th day. She'll be picked up by an Australian station, the first signal, at 57 minutes after launch, and beginning her payload turn-on in 11 days. Did you get the answer to the quiz question, by the way?
Well, I guess it's the 24th of December.
The 24th of December, the closest
launch.
We came to the Christmas launch. Well done.
Thanks, Josh.
Well done. Now, if you hadn't have got that, I think you'd be hitchhiking back to Paris, because you should know that answer.
I know. I was really scared when you asked me the question and told me that everyone should know that. But
you did very well. It's the very first Arianespace launch, Christmas Eve 1979. So anybody got that, give yourselves a round of applause, and you get to watch a replay for the launch, which is coming up. Maybe 1 or 2 replays. Here's the first replay for all you contest winners. we're still waiting for our replay, which I think will be coming up shortly. In the meantime, we are preparing. Here's your replay.
Tremendous.
The replay was watching the replay like the real thing.
It's totally different. You don't have this vibration.
I expect so. We're waiting for the podium to be set up. The post-launch speeches. We'll be hearing, of course, from Jean-Yves Le Gall, Arianespace's chairman and chief executive. And then we'll be hearing from Petra Mateos of Hispasat, I believe, by video link. Also from Mr. Sungman Kim of Koreasat. I see Jean-Yves Le Gall making his way to the podium. He is ready to speak. Mr. Le Gall, you have the floor when you are ready.
As you've just seen, this sixth launch of Ariane 5 in 2010 comes just 1 month after our last launch. And I'm delighted to tell you that Hispasat 1E and Koreasat 6 have been placed into geostationary transfer orbit. In fact, it's the 41st consecutive success of Ariane 5, and in 2010 we will have launched a total of 12 large telecommunications satellites out of a world total of 20. And you can work it out for yourselves. This gives us a market share of 60%. So first of all, I would like to thank particularly warmly our customers and above all those of you who've come from Spain and Korea to join us here at the Guyana Space Center for this further success. Our customer Hispasat, behind the Hispasat 1E spacecraft, has since 1992 been a very special partner of Ariane Space. We, in fact, launched the very first Hispasat satellite in 1992. That was Hispasat 1A. So we're particularly proud to share this new success with our Spanish customer. And I'd like to thank particularly my friend Petra Mateos, who's the Chairman Executive Officer of Hispasat. She's joined us from afar for the launch, and I'd like to thank her for the continuing trust and loyalty. Her success as the CEO of Hispasat is acknowledged throughout the world. At the very start of the month, Madame Mateos received in New York the prestigious award Leader of the Year, and I'd like to ask you to join with me in applauding her. Congratulations. I'd also like to thank John Celli, who was behind me here. He's the president of Space Systems L'Oréal. He's with us this evening, and we have asked him in under 1 month to provide us with 2 large telecom satellites, Intelsat 17 and Hispasat 1E. Both of them were put into orbit by Ariane 5. As for Koreasat 6, it's actually the second spacecraft that we're putting into orbit for KT Corporation after Koreasat 3 in 1999. And it's also the second satellite that we launched for South Korea in 2010, because a few months back we launched COMS. It's a great honor for us to accompany the development of the Korean space program, and we're very proud that KT Corporation has once again placed its trust in us. I'd particularly like to thank Mr. Sungman Kim for his decision to launch Koreasat 6 with Ariane Space. And the success of this evening goes to show how right he was. I'd also like to thank Thales Alenia Space and Orbital Sciences Corporation, the manufacturers of Koreasat 6. I'd also like to congratulate all of those who've contributed to this new success of Ariane 5, the member states of the European Space Agency, for the support they provide to the Ariane program, and this is something they've shown once again recently. Thanks also to the CNES back in France and here at the CSG. Thank you to our industrial partners who manufacture Ariane 5. And I would obviously very much like to thank the Ariane Space operational team for their flexibility, reactivity and availability committee, and I'd like to thank them particularly for the passion they put into their work. It's thanks to this that we have managed to keep our promises. These people have been working with grit and determination to reach our objectives, and once again they have proved that they are doubtless the best operational team in the world, and I'd like to thank you to congratulate them for me. And here, after the sixth launch of 2010, coming between Christmas and the New Year, and I can tell you, in fact, it's the first time in 30 years that this has happened, and I hope that it won't happen again. Anyhow, I'd like to congratulate and thank all of those in Europe and in French Guiana who've made it possible for us to succeed with this launch. And I'd also like to say that we can continue to satisfy our customers this evening, but also look to the 15th of February launch of the ATV Johannes Kepler. We can say that our customers have been right in their choices, because in total in 2010 we've signed 12 further contracts for spacecraft launches going up into geostationary orbit on Ariane 5. That's a total of 18 in the world. That gives us a 67% market share. So you can see that year after year we are still the leader of the pack. And it's our success, it's also the success of the Guiana Space Center. At this point, I think we should hear from our customers, beginning with Petra Mateos for Hispasat and Mr. Sung Man Kim for Koreasat.
As chairman of Hispasat, it is a tremendous source of satisfaction to announce the launch of our new communication satellite, the Hispasat 1E. As we speak, the new satellite turns around the Earth and is proceeding all by itself to carry out the necessary maneuvers to reach its definitive geostationary orbit at more than 36,000 kilometers over the equator. The Hispasat 1E allows our company to expand its capacity and coverage over Europe, America and Africa, and reinforce its position of leadership and its internationalization process. My thanks to all who have contributed with their efforts to the success of this mission. In first place, the launcher. Thank you, Yaniv. Once again, the contribution of Ariane Space to the project of the Hispasat Group has produced noteworthy results, confirming its much-deserved and recognized prestige. To Space System Loral, which has helped make an ambitious and complex idea like the construction of the Hispasat 1E satellite a reality. My congratulations also to the Spanish space industry. Hispasat maintains its commitment to the Spanish space industry, and it is a source of pride to work alongside companies such as IADS CASA, Thales Alenia Space España, RIMSA, Iberespacio, GMV, and Indra. I also congratulate the team at Korea Telecom for the launch of the Koreasat 6 satellite, our companion in this Ariane flight 199. Hispasat always maintains as a priority objective providing the best services to its clients. Thanks to all of the professionals that work in Hispasat who, with their efforts, enthusiasm, and dedication, make it possible for us to continue to grow as a company and to continue to serve as an example of service quality, innovation, and technological excellence.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sung-Man Kim, Senior Executive Vice President of KT. At this moment, I am extremely pleased to give a congratulatory speech on the occasion of the successful launch of the Koreasat 6 satellite. On behalf of KT, I would like to express my appreciation for the great efforts of Ariane Space, CONES, and ESA that have made all this successful on-time launch. To meet year-end launch time limit, your team did a very good job. To complete all necessary integration and assembly activities, working at midnight and even sacrificing your Christmas holiday. I also would like to deliver my special thanks to Thales Alenia Space and Orbital Science Corporation for their harmonized works that they have built a good quality spacecraft. I think thus OSC teamwork of this program was very much impressive. And I hope your team would continuously pay high attention to the successful deployment of Koreasat 6 satellite at its designated orbital location. Lastly, I would like to give my sincere gratitude to our loyal customer, Skylife, which is a #1 DTH service provider in Korea. Koreasat 6 is a replacement of Koreasat 3, and it will be used for high-quality HD and 3D broadcasting services for more than 3 million households in Korea. Once again, I appreciate all your efforts. Let's have a drink tonight for celebrating this successful launch. Thank you very much.
Bien. Écoutez, merci encore.
Well, thank you once again, and congratulations to everybody. As I said earlier, the next launch is on the 15th of February. It'll be a somewhat extraordinary launch. It'll be the launch of the ATV up to the International Space Station. And between now and then, I hope that the end of this year, 2010, is as enjoyable for you as it has been for us this evening. And I wish you all, to you and those who are close to you, a very happy new year.
Any last words?
Thank you, Josh. It was a pleasure to be here with you tonight. And I'm still under my emotions after having been outside for the launch.
Good. Good. On these last replay shots, where you can relive those emotional moments that you had, we will say goodbye. 55 launches, 41 straight, 33 dual launches, 74 payloads. With 6 launches this year, 12 satellites, and an additional 6 global stars put up by Soyuz in October, Ariane Space ends a banner year. Next year will prove to be just as big. 15th of February, the ATV 2, which will begin another year for Ariane Space with Soyuz and Vega coming to the CSG. You won't want to miss that one. Until then, Joshua Jample with Samir Amaji. Thanks for being with us. We hope you enjoyed it. Have a happy and a safe New Year.
Goodbye.